So today, we're going to try something a little bit different. Instead of acting like your teacher, today I want to act like a reader. You know how we spend pretty much every afternoon with our reading? We try different reading strategies, different ways to understand what we're reading. So today, I'm going to read something for us, and I'm going to think out loud about what I do when I read. And so I want you guys to notice different things that I do when I read, and then we're going to talk about them afterwards, which you guys saw me doing. And then we're going to try it in your own passages, okay? Does that sound good? So while I'm reading this, I'm going to be talking out loud, but I don't want anyone to ask any questions until we're done, okay? So I'm just going to be asking questions, but not really asking for an answer, okay? So first, before I even start reading, I'm going to look at the cover right here. So I see a big whale. I see the title, Blue Whale. So that makes it pretty clear to me what I'm going to be reading about, right? But then that gives me the right mindset to start reading. So I know we're going to start with blue whales. So I'm going to start. The blue whale is the biggest animal to ever live on Earth. Now just right there, it already put something in my mind about how huge this thing is, right? Because there's so many big animals that I can think of. So to be the biggest one, that's already something important to me. The biggest female ever measured weighed 200 tons. That's unbelievable. To me, that seems kind of important. So one of my strategies that I'm going to use is I like to underline things that are important to me. That is about how much 15 school buses weigh. Now this is important for me to think about because then I can think about how massive one school bus is. And if I think about how 15 are, that gives me a better picture of what a blue whale would weigh. The whale was 97 feet long. That is longer than a basketball court. Again, we want to look for as many visuals as we possibly can. So I know I've seen a basketball court before. I've never seen an animal that's as big as a basketball court, but that's what we're talking about with this. So that's giving me another picture of what we're learning about. How big is a blue whale baby? It's big, is the answer. A mother whale gives birth to one baby at a time. That baby is called a calf. Calf. Now that doesn't make sense to me because I've never heard the word calf before. But what I have heard are other mammals that have babies that are called calves. So to me that would make sense. So the L is silent, but I'm making a connection to something else. So I'm thinking about if that makes sense. Calf does not make sense. But calf does make sense. So then we're going to keep going. That baby is called a calf. A newborn calf weighs between 6,000 and 8,000 pounds. That is as much as 3 or 4 elephants weigh. Wow, that is important for me to see because I do know what a big elephant looks like. Like we see those things at the zoo, you know, so you can kind of connect to that. So I'm going to put a little star here because that's a connection for me to add to my visuals. We're going to keep going then. It can be up to 25 feet long. That is about how long 2 cars are if you line them up. Wow. A calf nurses or drinks its mother's milk. Now again, nurses is something that I'm not really too familiar with, but what I do know is that I can connect it to what other things can I think of that nurse. And then I can think of other little mammals or babies, and so that's the way that I know that they eat. A calf nurses or drinks its mother's milk. I also want you guys to recognize that every time I get to a sentence that I have a question about, I think through the question, but then I always go back and I reread the sentence so that it does start to flow and it does make more sense to me. So a calf nurses or drinks its mother's milk. The milk is very rich. It is full of nutrients. A calf will gain about 200 pounds a day. It gains that much every day for a year. Now to me again, this is some really important information, so I want to either underline it or highlight it so I can go back and I can remember what was important to me. Switch pages.
You gotta put the marker down.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, let's flip yours papers over so you can keep following along. It's about 12 months. calf will be about 50 feet long when it stops nursing. So since we just read the last sentence that it does it for a year, and it will nurse for a year, we know that that's how long it will be when it's 1 year old. Another important thing for me to remember. Also, have you guys ever tried to do something where you write little notes to yourself on the side?
Yeah.
Makes it kind of easy, right, to go back. So for me, since it's on a whole other piece of paper, I'm going to say at 1 year old. That's something that I want to be able to come back to. Although whales live in water, they breathe air. That does not make sense to me at all. But since that's only from this one sentence, my strategy is I'm going to keep reading the paragraph to see if I can find more clues more that I read. Although whales live in water, they breathe air. The air comes in through blowholes at the top of their head. Now that does make more sense because you can't breathe air when you're underwater. This reminds me, have you guys ever thought or seen someone with like a snorkel? So it's kind of like a tube to get air. So that's what I'm thinking about. So now that does make sense. But I'm going to go back to the beginning of the paragraph and reread that. Although whales live in the water, they breathe air. The air comes in through the blowholes at the top of their heads. Now that makes sense to me. A newborn calf depends on its mother to help it breathe. The mother pushes the calf up to the surface. The calf breathes out, then takes another breath. That sounds really important. It's showing me how the baby calves breathe. Blue whales can stay underwater for about 15 to 20 minutes. Wow. Then they need to breathe again. Another thing that I find important. Blue whales are one of the species of mammals that migrate. Again, that word is not making sense to me. But blue whales are one of the species of mammals that migrate. So since I'm not sure what this one is, again, I'm going to keep reading to see if it makes more sense. They may travel. Now here is a key word and here is a key word. So I know that mammals travel when they go to other places to usually avoid bad weather. That I know is called migrating. So suddenly I'm like, oh, migrate, not migrate, migrate. That makes sense. Another important vocab word. Again, I'm going to go back. Blue whales are one of the species of mammals that migrate, and they may travel 3,000 miles to find food. But mother whales and their calves do not go as far. Scientists have thought of a theory. They think it is because the calves cannot bear the cold water as much as their mothers can. A blue whale has no predators other than humans. That sounds important to me. So there are no natural predators for them except for us. So again, I'm going to make a note on my side to help me remember. Humans hunted many kinds of whales to near extinction. Extinction, I know that word, right? But since it's a little complicated, I'm going to remember that one. So what is the biggest danger a mother whale must protect her calf from? A large ocean liner filled with people. Now, that was a lot of information, right? A lot was happening. But something that I also think is so important for you guys to do is look at all of our visuals. This is showing us how big it is. We talked about it, and then the picture is so important. Also, whenever there's little figures or little side points, it is important to read, and it helps us tie everything together. So what I would do usually is then I would start from the very beginning and I would reread the whole thing so that it really made sense to me since I already worked out all those kinks in my mind. But since we did this together, now I want you guys to read your passages and I want you guys to show me some of the things that we modeled today. Before you start yours, I want to go through and I want to discuss some of the things that you noticed that I did that you guys are going to use for your reading comprehension. Does anybody have any ideas of what we showed? Jacqueline? Yes, underlining and highlighting words is super important and it's a great way to remember what's important. Who else? Mackenzie?
Like, you didn't know, like, what migrate was, so you had to, like, look for words to make it make sense.
Yeah, because that happens to us a lot, right? We can find clues in the rest of the sentence or paragraph to help us figure it out. Did we think of anything else, Mara?
You can get little notes on the side.
You can write little notes to the side. And then one that I want to talk about that we didn't want to say the exact name of, but cross-checking. Remember, this is something that we're going to put on our comprehension wall in the back. So cross-checking, remember we'd go through and be like, does that make sense? Like the blowhole, with them breathing underwater, that didn't make sense, right? But then we went through and we came back and it did make sense, right? So that's part of like piecing it together with those clues. Is there anything else that you guys want to start and show me on your own passages? You guys ready? Okay, so you guys can go ahead. If you want to take out your highlighters, you can. If you want to use your pencils, that's fine. And let's go through each of our passages. Okay?